The night smelled of rain and betrayal. A woman's scream tore through the quiet street of Riverview, just as a door slammed open. Papers scattered into the wind. A man fell to his knees, not because he was weak, but because the truth had finally caught up with him. Somewhere inside that house, a marriage was bleeding out slowly, and nothing, not money, not respect, not prayer, could stop it. But before we get there, if you love raw African stories that make your blood boil, stories of betrayal, revenge, and secrets, please like this story, subscribe, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Your support keeps these stories alive. Now let me take you back to where everything looked perfect. In Riverview, Samuel Okoye was not just a man. He was an institution. At 42 years old, Samuel had built himself from nothing. He started as a delivery assistant in his early 20s, riding on bad roads with borrowed trucks, sweating under the sun, begging warehouse managers to give him contracts. 20 years later, he owned Okoye Logistics, one of the most reliable transport companies in the region. People trusted him. Market women greeted him with smiles. Church elders shook his hand with pride. Young men pointed at him and said, "That's the kind of man I want to be." Samuel wore success quietly. Clean shirts, calm voice, no unnecessary noise. And at home, he was seen as a family man. His wife, Lydia Okoye, was his backbone. Lydia was the kind of woman people described with respect before beauty. She had stood by Samuel when there was no money, when creditors knocked at midnight, when trucks broke down and drivers ran away with fuel money. She believed in him when nobody else did. They had been married for 17 years. 2 children, Daniel, 15, serious and observant. Maya, 10, soft-spoken and affectionate. Every evening, Lydia made sure dinner was ready. Even when Samuel came home late, tired, or quiet, she waited. She asked about his day. She prayed for him. She defended him when relatives complained that he worked too much. In church, people admired them. See how Lydia supports her husband. Samuel is lucky. God bless this family. Samuel smiled through all of it. But smiles can lie. Because behind the calm face, behind a respected name, behind the family prayers, Samuel Okoye was slowly cracking. It started quietly. 18 months earlier, Samuel had just turned 41, and for the first time in his life, success felt empty. His business was stable. His children were growing fast. His wife loved him deeply. Yet, something inside him felt invisible. At the office, younger men were being praised. New ideas, new energy. Sometimes Samuel caught himself staring at his reflection in the glass, seeing gray hairs he never noticed before. Then Nina Blake joined the company. She was 27, sharp tongue, confident walk, always dressed neatly, always smiling just enough. She worked in administration, handling schedules, emails, contracts. At first, it was professional. "Good morning, sir. Your meetings are arranged. Please sign here." But Nina noticed things. She noticed when Samuel stayed late. She noticed when he rubbed his temples in stress. She noticed when he spoke about the pressure of being the man everyone depends on. One evening, as the office emptied, she said softly, "Sir, you work too hard. No one checks on you." Samuel laughed it off. "I'm fine," but the words stayed. The next week, she brought him coffee without asking. Another day, she said, "You don't look 42. You still have that strong presence." Presence. No one had described Samuel like that in years. At home, Lydia talked about school fees, church donations, and family plans. Important things, but routine. At the office, Nina listened. One night, after a long audit meeting, rain started pouring heavily. Nina stood by the door. "Sir, it's too late. The rain is bad. I live close. You can drop me." Samuel hesitated. He shouldn't, but he did. The car was quiet. Rain hit the windshield. Then Nina said, almost whispering, "Sometimes I wish I had a man like you. Someone steady." Samuel felt something shift. That was the first line crossed. After that, it moved fast. Private lunches turned into late dinners. Work calls turned into personal messages. Compliments turned into touches. Nina knew exactly what she was doing. She praised him when he felt old. She admired him when he felt forgotten. She fed the insecurity he never admitted out loud. One night, in a hotel he told Lydia was a business meeting, Samuel betrayed everything he stood for. Afterward, guilt swallowed him. He promised himself it was a mistake. Just once. But Nina cried. "You used me?" she asked, eyes red. "I thought you cared." Samuel panicked. "No, I do. This is complicated." And just like that, the trap tightened. Months passed. Samuel rented a small apartment under a different name. He withdrew money quietly. He learned how to lie smoothly. At home, Lydia noticed changes. Samuel was distant. He avoided her eyes. He held his phone too tightly. "Is everything okay?" she asked one night. "Yes," he replied quickly. Too quickly. Meanwhile, Nina became demanding. "If you really love me, prove it. Why can't you take me out publicly? Do you think I'll wait forever?" Samuel started living two lives. At home, husband, father, respected man. Outside, secret lover, liar, coward. Every night, guilt pressed on his chest. Every morning, fear followed him to work. But he couldn't stop, because Nina knew too much. And because deep down, Samuel was afraid of losing the image everyone loved, even as he destroyed the truth beneath it. He didn't know yet that this double life would soon explode. He didn't know that the woman he trusted at home already saw the cracks. And he definitely didn't know that the calm before the storm is always the most dangerous. Because once lies start demanding payment, they never accept small change. Samuel was going through delivery invoices when Nina walked into his office without knocking. That alone was strange. She usually knocked. She usually smiled. This time her face was stiff. Her lips were dry. Her eyes held something sharp and dangerous. "Close the door," she said. Samuel frowned. "Nina, I'm busy." "I have." "Close it," she repeated louder. His heart began to race. He stood up and locked the door. "What's wrong?" he asked, already uneasy. Nina didn't sit. She dropped her handbag on the table and folded her arms. "I'm pregnant." The words didn't register at first. Samuel laughed once, short and nervous. "That's not funny." "I'm 6 months pregnant," she said again, slow and clear. "And the baby is yours." The room tilted. Samuel staggered back in his chair like someone had slapped him. "No," he whispered. "That's not possible." Nina's eyes flashed. "So now I'm lying?" Samuel ran his hands through his hair. "Nina, listen. We were careful. And even if this doesn't make sense." She pulled out her phone and shoved it in his face. A blurry ultrasound image filled the screen. "I'm not here to argue biology," she snapped. "I'm here to tell you what's going to happen next." Fear crawled up Samuel's spine. What do you mean?" Nina leaned forward, lowering her voice. "You will leave your wife. You will announce our relationship. And you will marry me before this baby comes." Samuel jumped up. No, that's impossible. You know I can't." "Or," she cut in smoothly, "I terminate the pregnancy and tell everyone who you really are." Samuel froze. "What?" "I go to your church, your clients, your board members. I tell them how you sleep with your staff. I show them messages, receipts, hotel bookings." She smiled faintly. "You'll lose everything." Samuel's mouth went dry. "You're blackmailing me." "I'm protecting myself," Nina replied. "I won't raise a child alone while you play happy family." Samuel's voice shook. "Give me time. Please." "You have 2 weeks," she said. 2 weeks to choose. She picked up her bag and paused at the door. "And Samuel," she added, turning back, "if you try anything smart, I won't hesitate." The door closed behind her. Samuel stood there long after she left, staring at nothing. His legs felt weak. His world was collapsing, and he knew it. That evening, Samuel drove home slowly. The familiar streets of Riverview looked strange, almost hostile. Every billboard, every shop sign felt like a witness to his shame. At home, Lydia was in the kitchen, stirring soup. The smell usually comforted him. "Not tonight." "Welcome," she said warmly. "You're early." He forced a smile. "Yeah." They ate dinner quietly. The children talked about school. Lydia laughed softly. Samuel couldn't swallow. Each bite felt like gravel. After dinner, Lydia noticed his shaking hands. "Samuel," she said gently, What's wrong? He opened his mouth, closed it. I'm just tired. She studied him, but said nothing. That night, Samuel lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Nina's words echoed. 2 weeks to choose. His wife, his children, his reputation. Or scandal, shame, ruin. He thought of Lydia's sacrifices, the nights she prayed alone, the years she stood beside him. Tears slid into his ears. He had done this. Over the next few days, Samuel became a ghost. At work, he made mistakes. At home, he barely spoke. Lydia noticed everything. On the 4th night, she served him dinner and sat across from him instead of eating. Samuel, she said calmly, look at me. He avoided her eyes. Look at me, she insisted. Slowly, he raised his head. She reached across the table and held his hand. You're carrying something heavy, she said, and it's crushing you. His throat tightened. Whatever it is, she continued, we've faced worse. But I can't help you if you shut me out. The dam broke. Samuel's hands trembled violently. His shoulders shook. I've destroyed us, he whispered. Lydia stiffened, but didn't pull away. What do you mean? He took a deep breath, then another. I cheated, he said. Silence fell like thunder. Lydia's face didn't change, but her grip tightened. With someone from work, he added, voice cracking. It started over a year ago. Her jaw clenched. There's more, he said quickly. She says she's pregnant. Lydia's hand slowly slipped from his. She's threatening me, Samuel rushed on. She wants me to leave you, to marry her, or she'll destroy everything. His voice broke completely. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I hate myself. Tears streamed down his face as he dropped to his knees beside the table. I never meant for this to happen. Please forgive me. The room was deadly quiet. Samuel waited for shouting. Slaps. Tears. Instead, Lydia stood up slowly. She walked to the window and stood there, her back to him. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady but cold. How long? She asked. Have you been lying to me? Samuel swallowed. 18 months. She nodded slowly, as if confirming something she already knew. And you thought, she said, turning to face him, that I didn't notice? Samuel froze. What do you mean? Lydia crossed her arms. I noticed the late nights, the money withdrawals, the emotional distance. She laughed bitterly. You stopped touching me like a husband long ago. Samuel's heart pounded. So when exactly, she continued, did you think I was stupid? I never thought. Enough, she said sharply. She walked past him and went upstairs. Samuel remained on the floor, numb. Minutes later, she returned holding a folder. She dropped it on the table. Inside were bank statements, photos, printed messages. Samuel's blood ran cold. I've known for months, Lydia said quietly. I just needed to be sure. He stared at her, shocked. I was waiting, she continued, to see if you would tell me on your own. Her eyes burned with controlled fury. So now, she said, tell me everything. Slowly. Don't lie again. Samuel realized something terrifying in that moment. This was no longer about forgiveness. This was about survival. And Lydia Okoye was no longer the woman who waited patiently in the kitchen. She was alert, awake, and whatever was coming next, it would not be gentle. The house felt different after that night. Not loud, not chaotic, just cold. Samuel sat on the edge of the bed, his head buried in his hands. Dawn crept in slowly, pale light sliding through the curtains. He hadn't slept. Every sound in the house made his heart jump. Footsteps approached. Lydia entered the room dressed for the day, calm and composed, as if the ground beneath their marriage hadn't cracked wide open. Come downstairs, she said. We need to talk properly. Her tone wasn't angry. That scared him more. They sat in the living room, opposite each other, a wide space between them, like an invisible wall. Start from the beginning, Lydia said, and don't decorate the truth. Samuel swallowed hard. He told her everything. How Nina had noticed him when he felt invisible. How it started with conversations, then lunches, then hotel rooms. How he rented the apartment. How he lied, again and again. His voice shook as he spoke. I never stopped loving you, he said desperately. I was weak. I was stupid. Lydia listened without interrupting, her face unreadable. And the pregnancy? She asked when he finished. She told me she's 6 months pregnant, Samuel said. She came to my office. Gave me an ultimatum. What ultimatum? That I leave you and marry her, or she destroys me. Lydia nodded slowly, as if ticking off a list. So, she said, you didn't come to me because of guilt. Samuel flinched. You came because you were trapped. That's not. It is, Lydia cut in quietly. If she hadn't threatened you, you would still be lying. Samuel's mouth opened, then closed. The truth hurt too much to argue. I wanted to confess, he whispered. When? Lydia asked. After you had ruined us completely? She stood up and began pacing. Do you know what hurts the most? She asked. Not the affair. Samuel looked up sharply. It's that you underestimated me, she continued. You thought I was blind, weak, unaware. She stopped in front of him. I've been watching you fall apart for months. Samuel felt dizzy. You knew? He asked again, disbelief in his voice. I knew enough, Lydia replied. But I waited. Why? He asked hoarsely. Because truth always exposes itself, she said. I want to see how far the lie would go. She sat back down. And now it has brought you here, begging. Samuel dropped to his knees again, tears streaming. I'll do anything, he said. I'll cut her off. I'll resign if I have to. Please forgive me. Lydia closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, there was pain, but also steel. Forgiveness is not a conversation, she said. It's a process. Samuel looked up, hopeful. But before we even talk about forgiveness, she continued, we need facts. What facts? He asked. Lydia reached for the folder again. You're not the first person to panic because of a pregnancy claim, she said. And Nina is not the first woman to use fear as a weapon. Samuel's heart skipped. What are you saying? I'm saying, Lydia replied calmly, that there are holes in her story. Lydia opened the folder and pulled out several documents. Medical reports. Samuel frowned. What's that? He asked. Your medical history, she said. His stomach dropped. Lydia, 3 years ago, she continued, when we were trying for another child and it didn't happen, we went to the clinic together. Samuel remembered. Tests, long waits, quiet car rides. You were diagnosed with severely reduced sperm motility, Lydia said, her voice precise. The doctor said natural conception would be extremely unlikely without medical intervention. Samuel felt his throat tighten. Yes, he said slowly, but he didn't say impossible. No, Lydia agreed. Not impossible. She leaned forward, but statistically rare. Very rare. She slid another paper across the table. Now here's where things get interesting. Samuel picked it up. It was a printed timeline. I hired a private investigator 4 months ago, Lydia said flatly. Samuel's head snapped up. You did what? I hired a professional, she repeated. I needed facts, not emotions. He stared at her, stunned. You followed me? He asked. I followed the money, she corrected. The apartment rent, the hotel bookings, the cash withdrawals. She tapped the page. And Nina. Samuel's heart pounded violently. What about her? She wasn't exclusive, Lydia said simply. Samuel shook his head. She told me she cut everyone off. Lydia gave a humorless smile. People who lie for survival don't stop at one person. She flipped another page, photos. Nina entering a cafe. Nina holding hands with a man. Nina laughing. Do you recognize it? Lydia asked. Samuel squinted. Victor Hale, Lydia said. Her ex-boyfriend. They broke up 2 years ago. Samuel's chest tightened. They never broke up, Lydia continued. They've been on and off the entire time. She pulled out call logs. Daily communication. Even during the months she claimed she was only with you. Samuel's hands began to shake. So the pregnancy may not be yours, Lydia finished. A strange mix of relief and horror crashed into him. But she showed me ultrasound scans, he said weakly. Lydia nodded. Yes, real scans. She paused deliberately. Just not necessarily your child. Samuel slumped back into the couch. My God, there's more, Lydia said. She pulled out bank transfer records. 2 months ago, she said, Victor sent Nina a large sum of money. Samuel frowned. For what? For support, Lydia replied. Interesting timing, don't you think? Samuel buried his face in his hands. So she's playing both of us, he whispered. Yes, Lydia said, and squeezing the one with more to lose. She leaned back, watching him carefully. Samuel, she said, Nina doesn't want you. She wants security. Silence filled the room. Samuel felt sick. I was ready to destroy my family over a lie, he said, voice breaking. No, Lydia corrected him. You already destroyed it with the affair. She softened slightly. But this pregnancy threat? She added. That may be her final move. Samuel looked up, desperation flooding his eyes. What do we do? He asked. Lydia's gaze hardened. We don't panic, she said. We verify. She stood up. I want independent medical confirmation, she continued. A legitimate paternity test. No shortcuts. And if she refuses? Samuel asked. Lydia smiled faintly, but it wasn't warm. Then that tells us everything. She walked toward the stairs, then stopped. One more thing, she said without turning around. Samuel waited. You're sleeping in the guest room, she said, until I decide what this marriage becomes. She went upstairs, leaving Samuel alone. He sat there, surrounded by evidence, lies, and the ruins of his choices. For the first time since Nina walked into his office, one thing became clear. This was no longer about escaping shame. It was about facing consequences. And Lydia Okoye was not a woman reacting blindly. She was calculating, watching, preparing. And whatever came next would expose everyone, including the woman who thought she was in control. The trap closed itself on a Sunday afternoon. Not with shouting, not with violence, but with truth. Lydia had barely finished clearing the dining table when the doorbell rang. Once, twice, then loud knocking. Samuel, seated stiffly on the couch, felt his heart slam against his ribs. Lydia didn't flinch. I was expecting her, she said calmly. Samuel's eyes widened. Lydia. She raised a hand, sit, and watch. She walked to the door and opened it. Nina stood there, visibly pregnant, one hand resting on her belly. Behind her were two women, older, stern-looking, and a man who looked like an uncle or cousin, the kind of relatives brought along to apply pressure. Good afternoon, Nina said loudly, her voice already dramatic. I'm here to see Samuel. Samuel stood up instinctively. Why did you bring people? He demanded. Nina ignored him and turned to Lydia. So you must be the wife, she said, eyes sweeping Lydia up and down. We need to talk. Like adults. Lydia stepped aside. Please, she said politely. Come in. They entered, filling the living room with tension. One of the older women cleared her throat. We are Nina's family, she announced. This situation has gone on long enough. Lydia nodded and gestured toward the chairs. Sit, she said. All of you. Nina hesitated. She hadn't expected cooperation. They all sat. Samuel stood frozen, sweat forming at his temples. Nina crossed her legs and spoke first. I'm pregnant with Samuel's child, she said boldly, and he has been avoiding responsibility. That's a lie, Samuel blurted out. One of the women snapped. Shut up. A man should not deny his seed. Lydia lifted a finger. Please, she said calmly. Everyone will speak, but not over each other. Her composure unsettled Nina. You're 6 months pregnant, Lydia continued, looking directly at her. Correct. Yes, Nina replied. And I'm tired of being disrespected. Lydia nodded. And you claim Samuel is the father? Yes. Lydia stood up, walked to the side table, and picked up a thick brown envelope. Before we continue, she said evenly, I want to show you something. She pulled out photographs and placed them on the center table. Nina's smile faltered. Photos of Nina entering hotels. Photos of Nina with another man. Laughing, holding hands, kissing. One of the women leaned forward. Who is that? She asked sharply. Nina stiffened. That, Lydia said, is Victor Hale. Silence fell. Samuel's chest tightened. I know him, he said. You told me he was out of your life. Nina's eyes darted. He came back recently, she snapped. It doesn't mean anything. Lydia flipped another page. Call logs. Daily calls, Lydia said. For over a year. Another page. Bank transfers. Money from Victor. 2 months ago. One of the relatives turned to Nina. Is this true? Nina swallowed. Listen. Lydia didn't stop. You claimed exclusivity with my husband, she said. But you were involved with 2 men at the same time. Nina stood abruptly. You have no right. Oh, I do, Lydia replied calmly. Because you brought your problem to my house. She turned to the relatives. Before you accuse my husband publicly, Lydia said, you deserve the full truth. She faced Nina again. Who else did you sleep with during the period of conception? Nina's jaw clenched. Answer, Lydia said softly, but firmly. Nina laughed nervously. This is ridiculous. I don't need to explain my private life. One of the older women slapped the armrest. You will explain, she barked. We didn't come here to be disgraced. Nina's eyes filled with angry tears. Fine, she snapped. Yes, Victor and I were on and off. So what? So the child may not be Samuel's, Lydia said. The words landed like a bomb. The relatives murmured loudly. Samuel staggered back into his chair. You lied, he whispered. I did what I had to do. Nina screamed. You promised me a future. I promised you honesty, Samuel shot back. You chose threats. Nina turned to Lydia, rage blazing. You think you've won? She hissed. He still cheated. He still disgraced you. Lydia didn't deny it. You're right, she said. He did. She stepped closer. But unlike you, I don't build my life on manipulation. She turned to the relatives. There will be a court-supervised paternity test, Lydia said. Until then, no accusations. No pressure. No threats. One of the women nodded slowly. That is fair. Nina shook her head wildly. No, I won't. Lydia's eyes hardened. Then leave, she said, and don't return until you're ready to tell the truth. The relatives exchanged glances. One by one they stood. Nina, one of them said sternly, we will talk. They ushered her toward the door as she screamed over her shoulder. You'll regret this. Both of you. The door slammed shut. Silence followed. Samuel felt like he couldn't breathe. 2 days later, the call came. Victor Hale agreed to meet. Samuel insisted on going alone. Lydia allowed it, but with conditions. No shouting, she said. No deals. Just facts. They met at a quiet roadside cafe. Victor arrived first. He was tall, relaxed, and disturbingly calm. So, Victor said, sipping his drink. You're Samuel. Samuel sat down stiffly. You've been sleeping with a woman, threatening my family, he said flatly. Victor raised an eyebrow. That depends, he replied. How long has she been threatening you? Samuel clenched his fists. She says the baby is mine. Victor laughed softly. That's what she told me too. Samuel stared at him. She told you that? Yes, Victor said. Then she told me it was yours. Samuel felt sick. When did you last sleep with her? He asked. Victor leaned back. During the same period, she claimed she was exclusive with you. The truth hit hard. So you knew she was seeing me? Victor nodded. She told me you were just a sponsor. A married man she was handling. Samuel's chest burned. And you still stayed? He asked bitterly. Victor shrugged. She knows how to talk. And I cared. Samuel took a deep breath. Did you help her? He asked. With the threats? Victor shook his head. No, he said. I found out later. When she demanded more money. Samuel leaned forward. She forged documents, he said quietly. Ultrasound interpretations. Paternity paperwork. Victor's expression changed. That explains it, he muttered. Explains what? She tried to get me to sign a financial agreement, Victor said. Said it was for baby security. I refused. Samuel exhaled shakily. So she's been playing us both, he said. Victor nodded grimly. She wants stability. Doesn't matter from who. Samuel rubbed his face. If the child is yours, he said, will you take responsibility? Victor didn't hesitate. Yes. Samuel looked up. Then say that publicly, he said, before she destroys more lives. Victor sighed. I will, he said, but she won't go quietly. Samuel stood up. Neither will we, he replied. As Samuel walked away, one thing was painfully clear. The lie had grown bigger than Nina, and the truth, once unleashed, would burn everything in its path, including whatever fragile peace Samuel and Lydia were trying to build. Because the next move wouldn't be emotional. It would be legal, and Nina Blake had already crossed a line she couldn't erase. The final act came quietly, but it hit harder than all the shouting combined. Nina didn't back down. In fact, she doubled down. 3 days after Samuel met Victor, Nina sent Samuel a message that made his hand shake. The test is done. You're the father. I want my money now. Attached was a scam paternity test result. His name boldly printed, stamped, and signed. For a brief second, fear tried to return. But Lydia didn't panic. She studied the document carefully, line by line, her face unreadable. Then she laughed. A short, sharp laugh. "This is fake," she said. Samuel looked up. "How do you know?" "Because this clinic doesn't issue digital-only reports," Lydia replied calmly. "And this doctor retired 2 years ago." Samuel felt his knees weaken. "She forged it?" "Yes," Lydia said, "and she made a mistake." Lydia moved fast. She contacted the clinic listed on the document. She contacted a lawyer. She contacted the investigator. Within 48 hours, the truth surfaced. The clinic confirmed they had never conducted a paternity test for Nina Blake. The letterhead was copied. The doctor's signature was forged. The stamp was outdated. It was attempted extortion. When Nina was invited, politely, to come clarify the situation at the lawyer's office, she arrived confident. Until the evidence was laid out. She laughed at first. "This is a misunderstanding," she said. "You people are reaching." Then the clinic's official statement was read. Then the investigator showed bank records, messages demanding money. Then Victor's written statement was produced. Her smile vanished. "You can't do this to me," Nina whispered, panic rising. "I'm pregnant." "That doesn't give you the right to commit a crime," the lawyer replied flatly. When the police arrived, Nina screamed. She cried. She accused. She threatened. None of it worked. She was arrested for attempted extortion and falsification of medical records. As she was led away, she locked eyes with Samuel. "You ruined my life," she screamed. Samuel didn't answer, because for the first time, he understood something painful but necessary. She didn't ruin his life. He invited her into it. 2 weeks later, the official court-supervised paternity results came in. Victor Hale was confirmed as the father. Samuel sat in the car outside the hospital holding the envelope, his hands trembling. Relief hit him first. Then shame followed immediately after. He drove home slowly. Lydia was in the living room when he entered. Calm, prepared. He handed her the envelope without a word. She opened it, read it once, then closed it gently. So she said, "It's confirmed." "Yes," Samuel replied. "Victor is the father." He waited for joy, for celebration, for relief to be shared. None came. Instead, Lydia sat back and studied him carefully. "You look relieved," she said. "I am," he admitted quietly. "But I know that doesn't fix anything." She nodded. "That's the first honest thing you've said in a long time." Silence stretched between them. "The threat is gone," Samuel continued. "The scandal didn't happen. We can move forward." Lydia raised an eyebrow. "You can move forward," she corrected. "I'm still deciding where I stand." Samuel swallowed. "I'll do whatever it takes," he said. "Therapy, transparency, accountability." Lydia stood up and walked toward the window. "For months," she said softly, "I mourned a marriage that was still alive on paper." She turned to face him. "You didn't just cheat, Samuel. You rewrote our reality without my consent." Tears filled his eyes. "I know," he whispered, "and I'll spend the rest of my life making it right." Lydia walked back to him and stopped just a step away. "Forgiveness," she said slowly, "is not absolution." She took a breath. "I am choosing conditional forgiveness." Hope flickered in Samuel's eyes. "But understand this," she continued firmly. "Trust is not restored by relief. It's restored by consistency." She outlined her conditions clearly. Full transparency with finances and communication, individual and marital counseling, boundaries at work, time, measured in years, not months. "And one more thing," she added. Samuel waited. "If I ever feel disrespected again," she said calmly, "I will leave." Quietly. Permanently. He nodded, tears spilling freely. "I accept," he said. "All of it." Lydia didn't embrace him. Not yet. But she didn't walk away either. Outside, life in Riverview went on. People still greeted Samuel. His business survived. His reputation remained mostly intact. But inside that house, nothing was the same. Samuel learned that escaping consequences is not the same as escaping damage. And Lydia learned that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it sits, watches, waits, and then decides.